Doing today? Good?
I'm doing pretty good. Of course, welcome to Pook and to Seeker and to Marcos and a couple other friends just joining us.
Awesome. So we are live. We're good to go. I believe my sound should be working. Everything should check. Pook's going to let me know if we're good there. Uh, got a few different things I want to go over today. And some of you may have read this article, but I saw it last night and I just pulled it up now. Awesome. Pook, thank you. Let me get the article up here. So it looks like the Biden administration, instead of going to supplement what oil we would lose by banning oil imports from Russia with our own oil, they want to try and supplement it with oil from Venezuela. So let's go from, potentially banning imports from Russia and importing them from a communist country. That sounds very smart. Does anyone remember how many jobs people lost when Biden got rid of the Keystone Pipeline? I believe it's around 10,000 skilled labor jobs. Good paying jobs, is that? So I want to read this article. It says several senior Biden administration officials from the White House and State Department traveled to Venezuela on Saturday to meet with Russian ally as Moscow's economy begins to crater under the weight of sanctions, according to a report. The U.S. is hoping to capitalize on Russia's economic weakness 3 years after the Kremlin, along with China and Iran, came to Venezuela's financial aid when Trump administration cut diplomatic ties with Caracas and imposed sanctions on oil exports in the Latin American country amid Western accusations of an illegitimate election. The New York Times reported, citing sources familiar with the matter. Wow, that whole paragraph was one sentence. Sheesh, I thought my writing was bad. It goes on to say that current officials hope to pull Caracas further away from Moscow after Venezuela has already distanced itself from Russia. President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, according to the report. I'm trying to get, where is it at? It says some in the U.S. are considering Venezuelan oil as a possible substitute to Russian imports, as more American politicians say the U.S. needs to end its reliance on Russian oil, which could help finance Putin's war. Here's the thing. It's not that we need to end the reliance on Russian oil. It's that we need to end the reliance on anyone else's oil. Honestly, the problem isn't even the invasion. And the problem isn't a Russian thing. The problem is a reliance thing on other nations to provide us with a necessary resource. Why? Here's the thing. We're always going to need energy. We need power. We need heat. Especially in the majority of the United States, where it gets really cold. And we need to drive. Those are things that we need. We also need food. So why would we ever want to rely on any other country for our necessities? Getting luxury goods from another country is fine. Your phones, whatever. I'm fine with that. But when we start talking about oil, electricity, natural gas, food, we have more than enough resources here in the United States to not only sustain ourselves, but the entire world, and yet we rely on everyone else. Not only are we relying on everyone else, but we're relying on the people that don't even like us. Think about, why is China so deeply ingrained into our economy? And I'm not talking about, like, again, it's the necessities that we rely on. Why would we want China to provide us with any necessity, knowing that more than likely we're actually probably going to be in a war with China in a matter of a few years, at least? I would say more than likely we go to war with China before 2049. That just doesn't sound like good business. That's like you.
Why are we paying our enemies to hate us when they could just hate us for free? Is what we're trying to get at, right, Michael?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, they're gonna hate us. They're gonna hate us, right? I mean, we have slowly given up all of our leverage. We still have leverage, so we haven't given it all up. But we are slowly getting to that point where we don't have any more leverage. Leverage is everything. And I've said this before. It's not about having people like us. Who gives it? Who cares? I was about to say something bad. Who cares if another country likes us? Like a China or a Russia. They already don't like us. I'd rather be feared around the world than I would liked. Because here's the thing. If you fear someone, then you're going to be more cautious. You're not going to mess with that person necessarily. But we let these countries take advantage of us. And it's going to come back and bite us in the ass. It is. Think about this. If we opened up the Keystone Pipeline again, Eric, you'll have to confirm this. I don't think it was ever finished. It's not like we're going to open it up, start pumping oil, and fix everything. I think it was like a process, but the fact that he shut it down and cost those people those jobs, why not create those jobs again, Biden? You're all about creating jobs. You could bring back 10,000 high-paying jobs immediately with the click of a pen. Do that. Take the steps. Why are we going to go to another country, especially a communist one, that has, in the last few years, done the exact same things that you're against Putin for doing with all the human rights violations and stuff, instead of just getting it from ourselves? What's up, Poot?
Hey, what's going on?
Not much. How you doing?
Good. Hey, listen, just I don't know all the specifics, but I do know that the Keystone had its own set of complications, right? And one of my clients is a company called EC Source, and they do these pipeline construction projects. They were facing a lot of challenges for states and counties where they were denying permits and all this kind of stuff to get those pipelines through. And there was a lot of eminent domain issues. But one of the biggest things was these counties and these cities where it was coming through and they wanted to do this reconstruction. They wanted a piece of the profits.
Gotcha.
And they were denying these permits because of that. And
the government was?
The local governments
were denying the permits because they wanted a piece of the profits?
Correct.
Gotcha.
So there was this huge fight going on where all these different municipalities and these states were creating a lot of problems for the process because they weren't getting anything out of it. Then you had eminent domain issues where property owners came in and filed lawsuits because technically it wasn't anything to do with the U.S. government. It was the Canadian government pushing their sand oil right to the Gulf Coast.
Gotcha.
So there was a lot of other issues that were involved with that than just saying, you know what, it's bad for the environment. And that, unfortunately, that's the assumption a lot of times. And the assumption may be that Biden did this on his own, but all this was going on way before. Matter of fact, in 2019, trying to think of the month. Give me a second. I think it was April or May of 2019. One of my clients had a lot of work with that, and we were pushing a lot of people up in those areas.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, these towns and these counties where these people were staying, they become very angry. They become very aggressive towards a lot of these guys. And EC Source was just one of them.
Gotcha.
They were just a small piece of that. But I think sometimes the assumption, because,
hey, Pook.
You know, what?
Can you get a little closer to your mic?
Yeah, is that better?
A little closer if you could.
Is that better?
Oh yeah, way better. There we go.
Okay. So I think the assumption is that Biden came in and just decided he was going to close it, and it was about the environment, and only a piece of that is true.
Mm-hmm.
And then the idea is to create a redistribution of the existing rail service to get it to other areas, both east and west, to make sure that they. So the rail service, BNSF Railroad, is one of my clients.
Mm-hmm.
The attrition of jobs from the pipeline transferred into a lot of these rail openings, and they went crazy. They're still working on all kinds of stuff. And these rail systems, they're having to come in and redo some of the rail systems because they were damaged or they needed upgraded or whatever. And it's not dead. They're still getting their oil seen here. But the truth is the U.S. wasn't getting anything out of it other than the refinery jobs.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
And that directly impacted my communities because that's where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was shut down, my EC Source guys, they're still building stuff. They never had layoffs. This is a huge company.
Yeah.
Schlumberger, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they are oil and gas company. They had some hands in different things, and they're fine, you know. But I think there's a misunderstanding sometimes about the pipeline deal.
I think so
and when
too.
When it comes to the oil thing, remember, we're part of the World Bank.
Mm-hmm.
So our consumption has to support the rest of the world's effort.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's mandated by this World Bank participation.
So explain that if you could. I don't know if you'll be able to explain what you mean by the World Bank and stuff, because I mean, I don't know too much about that, and I'm sure people listening may not know all that much. Or, you know, when you're saying that, so we're part of the World Bank and our consumption has to support, you said, the rest of the world.
The rest of the world.
Yeah.
Correct.
So.
And those partners that control the majority of the oil, like Saudi Arabia, Iran, those type of, you know, Russia, they have to support those economies because everybody's in this together. And if you look at history on the World Bank, at one point, I want to say it was around 2001 or something. It was right before all this stuff started in Iraq. There were a certain number of countries that were not participating in the World Bank. And I'll see if I can find that list and send it to you.
Okay.
A lot of it's been removed. But North Korea, Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, Iran, and all these other countries that have now caved to the World Bank system.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
So now they're part of that system and they're not the aggressor anymore. if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
North Korea, I think, is probably one of the only ones that's still not participating. And then there's some other random country out there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think over time, I'm 52 years old. So over time, the things that I've seen happen are just right in my face right now because of how all these triggers are taking place, regardless of what Putin's doing in Russia. You know, yes, they're like the largest oil company in Russia today is basically demanding that this stops because they're going broke.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that all day long, but when it comes back to that pipeline issue, and I'm a big believer that the Alaska region should be drilling oil.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Well, it's already
Because
there.
it
Why
can
not
be
use
done-
it?
Well, it can be done responsibly.
Yeah, I agree.
And here's the thing: I see oil rigs all the time. If I go on a cruise or something, I see them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it does to the shores here.
Yeah.
But when you're sitting, I know what part of region of the country you guys are in. When you're sitting looking at a South Carolina beach or a Georgia beach, and you look out and you don't see that stuff, it's a huge difference when you're in Gulf Coast states.
Mm-hmm. Some Gulf Coast
And
states, because where I'm at in Florida, right, and we're right on the Gulf of Mexico, we don't have that problem.
Right. So, but if you come a little further west,
Mhm.
you're going to start seeing that.
Yeah.
And then you really get a good understanding, especially if you get on a cruise ship, of how many are really out there and how far they are out there.
Yeah.
I deal with a lot of the guys that do the air transportation, the helicopter transportation from like Lake Charles and some other local areas where they're taking these people out to these rigs on these high powered helicopters.
Yeah.
And it just blows me away how busy they are. And I'm all for more drilling, but it has to be responsible too, because we want to make sure we preserve the environment responsibly.
I agree. Look,
You can't just go in and get the oil.
I agree.
And if you're in Florida, the sinkholes are a result of them drilling and everything else.
Yeah.
So this is a fact.
That and then
And
the
the
water
fracking
actually is another reason why.
Yeah.
Going for water underneath the ground is a big reason for the sinkholes, especially in Florida.
Sure.
Look, here's the thing. I talk about the climate change stuff, and I talk about how I think a lot of it's a scam. That doesn't mean I don't care about the environment. Here's the thing. I don't litter, okay? I'm a conservationist. I really am. And I get that there are things that actually crush the environment, like the oil. When they had the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, I can't remember where that spill originated. I believe it was off of Mobile or somewhere around New Orleans.
I think so.
In that area. I mean, it wrecked. It wrecked the wildlife in the Gulf of Mexico in that area. It really did. I remember that's when I learned, what was it, Dawn soap?
BP, right?
I think so, yeah. That's when I learned Dawn soap is really good for getting oil off your hands and stuff, because they're using Dawn soap to go and clean that up. And so I get it. I really do. And I agree with you, Pook, that we need to, if we're going to do something, do it, environmentally friendly. And what's funny about that, though, is you've seen a pipeline, I'm assuming. I've seen the Alaskan pipeline. You look at the amount of space
there's one about 6 miles north of me.
Yeah, and what is it? Maybe, I don't know, 3 foot by in diameter.
It's probably about 3 feet, maybe 4.
And that's all it takes up. That's it. And then it just the length of how wherever that runs from station to station. It cuts through. When you look at a mine, to mine lithium or anything like that, have you seen what those mines look like?
Yeah.
It's a gigantic hole in the ground. Massive.
Yep, in West Virginia.
Yeah. And so the environmental impact as far as building the pipeline itself is extremely minimal. Now, drilling for the oil is another issue, like you brought up, because there's consequences for that. Like drilling overseas. If you drill on land, you have the sinkholes like you talked about. But if you drill it on land, there's not as much. I don't think the consequences are the same. It'd probably be easier to clean up, and it probably just absorb into the ground back where it came from. But drilling in the sea is different because it just, it fills in the water. You can't really clean it up. But I still think that we have the ways in place already to increase production and do it safely.
But why are we so stuck on the fact that the Keystone Pipeline was an influence to American oil when in fact it was a Canadian product?
Yeah. I think
getting sent to the Gulf Coast for export.
Yeah, I get that.
This wasn't something that we were producing.
I think that,
and when we look at what did you say, 10,000 jobs?
Yeah.
Okay, so when COVID hit, we whatever. I know for a fact that I want to say the number was somewhere around right down the street from me, literally 3 miles from me. The Exxon campus and one of their headquarters, I don't know exactly what they call themselves. It's not their corporate headquarters, but it's like the next one down. They employ about 20,000+ people. Then you've got Anadarko and all these other companies right there, and their office is shut down. There was almost 30,000 people collectively out of work right here in this community. And then all the refineries were shutting down.
Yeah.
All the way through Baytown, Texas, and then Port Arthur and Texas City and Freeport and all these different areas. These things impacted this economy, and now they're back to work. And that's what I said to somebody the other night. Somebody was complaining to me about gas prices. Yeah, they're going up, but the oil companies are doing the money grab right now.
Yeah.
Even if the federal government says, okay, we're going to eliminate our federal tax, the oil company is going to keep that rate high because they're trying to recover all their losses, or so they say, from a couple years ago, when in fact they had all the biggest tax breaks in history. It was the biggest heist in American history.
Yeah. This is why I like having Pook on, because he brings a good perspective to this. And that's a good point that we can hit on, right? When I talk about gas prices, I do not compare right now to 2020 prices, because people always get caught up in conservatives, and I'm a conservative, but other conservatives get caught up in the fact, oh, well, Trump's last year in office, gas was $1.50, and now when Biden took office, it's $4, right? You can't, that's not a fair comparison. You can't use 2020. You have to use 2019 is fine. 2018 is fine. 2019.
Go back to 14.
Yeah, but
or better yet, go back to 2007, I think, when the mortgage meltdown. Was it 7 or 08?
2008. Yeah. 2008. So we have the highest prices right now since 2008, is what everyone's saying. I don't remember them being this high. I remember they got up around, because I was in college then, and I remember, like, I would go put $20 in my truck, and gosh, it would last a day, it seemed like. I don't ever remember paying $4 in gas, though. Yesterday was the first time I ever paid $4 in gas. So I think they're higher.
I think it was 14. It was under Obama, and I want to say it was 13 or like late 13, early 14, somewhere in there. It was over $4 a gallon.
Was it?
Yeah.
And
that was here. That was here in Texas City.
Yeah. Well, I was here in Murfreesboro still. I just don't remember paying $4. I don't remember paying over $3. I could be wrong. Maybe I just don't remember paying that much. But I do remember gas prices were very high, because I remember when they went down, back to like $2.20 and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Gas is getting cheaper. And I do remember that. I want to say gas here in Murfreesboro was about, was that?
I remember 69, 79 cents a gallon. So.
Well, I remember when I was younger, it was always, I remember when it hit $2 and never went below it again. I was like, I remember my parents saying, damn, $2 a gallon. That's crazy. And when you think about it, gas is one of those things that it is kind of crazy. It could be $2 a gallon. It could be under $2 a gallon, right? It's just so many variables that keep it from doing that. But like you said, even if the government gets rid of the gas tax, I was explaining this to Jester last night on his show, And I said, look, the government doesn't make more money when gas prices are higher. They don't have an incentive when there's higher gas prices, right? First of all, gas and oil, it's an inelastic demand, which means that the demand for that changes very subtly if it changes at all. I have to get to work no matter what. I have no choice. My office is 50 miles away. I drive an hour to work when I go to the office. I can't ride a bike. It's going through mountains. I'm not riding a bike to the office. I have no other alternative. I don't have a public transportation.
Yes, you have an alternative.
What's that?
You have the methanol.
The what?
What about the methanol production?
What production?
Methanol production.
You say metanol?
Yeah,
ethanol.
methanol.
Methanol. What is methanol?
Ethanol.
Ethanol. We have ethanol in our gas, Marcos, but you can't just use too much ethanol because it actually destroys your car. Ethanol is not good.
Because we have all cars just moved by ethanol here in Brazil.
Yeah, we have
Works.
some too, but you gotta have a special car to take that. You know, like I think our gas has like 10%.
And those cars cost a fortune too.
Yeah, I think our gas takes.
No, they don't.
Well, hear me out though, Marcos. I want to say the majority of our gas has about 10 to 15% ethanol. A lot of cars are rated just for that 10 to 15% range. If you put too much, it'll destroy the vehicle. Ideally, you don't want any ethanol. Ethanol is not good. It's just that motors today are built to where they can withstand ethanol. There's no issue there. But you still don't want too much. What's that?
Then you have corn issue because that's where it comes from.
Yeah. Then you got to worry about corn production. Yeah. But what I'm getting at is gas prices the demand for gas is inelastic. What you may have is people saying, gosh, it's $4 a gallon. Okay, maybe I'm not going to go to the store twice a week. I'm going to go once a week, or maybe I'm not going to take this drive this vacation to the beach because it's going to be really expensive. I don't know. Little things, though. But the majority of people's driving is for work, going to the office and back. And so someone like myself I drive a lot. My gas expense...
And you're driving a truck?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. It makes a big difference.
Sure.
So
I have a truck,
mm-hmm.
and I drive my Nissan Rogue Sport most of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm getting between 34 and 40 miles to the gallon.
Well, yeah, that's great. Now I wish I had it, but I have so much use for the truck. I'm muting someone. I have so much use for the truck, though, that I don't want another vehicle, but I may end up getting one. But what I'm saying is that since demand doesn't change all that much, then the more the prices go up, the more money that these companies bring in. Because we're going to buy the same amount of oil and gas. It doesn't matter. That's why you hear that, gas price, it's $125 per barrel. It's, it was $70 at the beginning of the year. Yeah, they're making the difference. They really are making more money. These oil companies want that price per barrel to go up. Every time that cost keeps going up and we keep buying oil like we are from Russia, and we only buy 4% of our oil from Russia, that's fine, but the European Union buys a lot of their oil from Russia. A lot. And Russia's just raking in that money. They're just bringing it in. And they're spitting it back out, paying for it for this war. Now, when you talk about eliminating the federal gas tax, that is a set fee per state. It's not a percentage of the cost. It's not like the sales tax when you buy something and you pay a 10% sales tax on top of that. It doesn't work like that. It's a specific amount. So like Pook said, if you cut it out, let's say it's a half a penny per gallon. If you take off that half a penny, the oil companies are just going to keep it where it's at, or they're going to bump it up, the difference that the government eliminated, and just take more money anyway. It's not going to make a difference. And what's up?
I was washing my hands.
Oh no, you're good. He said, "What what losses we had today, and it was brutal. But my oil and gas is up. Oh yeah, it's way up.
You're an FA, so you saw what was happening today.
Yeah, these companies are raking in the profit, and there's not a lot of incentive right now for them to lower the price. There's not a lot of incentive for them to lower the cost.
Brazil has a monopoly in fuel, so it's a state federal company that rules the whole process, and still we have the highest price in whole South America, because we attach our prices with the dollar.
Well, yeah, that's a problem too, because your guys' money's worth a lot less. And if they have a the government has a monopoly on the oil production. Wow. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Yeah, big problem, big conflict of interest. You know, could we increase production? Yes. Do we have enough oil here in the United States to not only supplement what we lose in our oil from Russia, but to supplement all of what Russia gives to the European Union? Absolutely. Would it make money for the United States? Absolutely. Is there a benefit to doing it? You can argue there's a benefit to doing that. Absolutely. There are negatives, there are drawbacks, but Pook, tell me if you agree with this. Would you not say that we're going to go to Venezuela and see if we can supplement it with Venezuelan oil before we consider pumping our own oil, because Biden doesn't want to go back on promises that he made when he first got in office.
For the environmentalist.
Yes, for the whole climate change thing and all that stuff. He doesn't want to have to go back on that.
Do you think his thought process may be swinging Venezuela to an ally for the U.S. and alienating Russia even more?
Well, I think, let me pull the article back up, but I believe that Venezuela has kind of already condemned Russia on what they're doing. I think
condemning them and being in bed with them are two different things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I have to look further into what their actual relationship is. Again, I don't know a lot about that relationship and what they're providing each other or not. Go ahead.
The Venezuelan army is sustained by Russians, and the whole government are financed by China.
Okay, so they still had the Chinese playing against them too. Pook, they could be trying to go down there and sway them away from China and Russia. You could be right.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I think the United States will screw it up, though. We have history, and this whole Ukraine and Russia scenario is proof of this. We have history of, we're not going to work with you at all unless you completely change the way that you govern your country. I hope Venezuela does change, because they're very oppressive. It's a communist country. I don't like communism. They need to get rid of that and, do a hell of a lot better and allow their people to prosper and grow into the country they used to be. But it's not going to be an overnight process. And the United States has a problem with trying to go in there and change it completely overnight, instead of being open to working with a country like that and slowly building them up and converting them.
Like Cuba.
Yes, like Cuba, like Ukraine. Great example right there.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a lot of the reason why we have these problems right now. And like Russia. Because like I've talked about before, we had a chance to go in there and help Russia become a secure democratic nation, and we chose not to do that. We chose to actually just sit there and punish them and do, everything we could to let them know that they're not the biggest, baddest country on the planet. We are. And I think maybe if we're going to work with Venezuela, then we need to kind of eat our pride a little bit and say, you know, we want to do business with you. We want to help you guys grow, and we want to help your people and your economy prosper. We're willing to do business with you now. And over time, though, we just want you to start transitioning away from this and embracing the Western style of economics and government. You know, don't just go in there and expect a freaking regime change overnight. Because that's what we did in Iraq. You know, we did it in Ukraine. We did it in, you know, I mean, how many countless countries have we done that in? And we have screwed it up. Now, we've also helped a lot too, but usually when we help the countries, we have actually completely occupied it and then built it up. But we're not
Then
going
you are not satisfied through all these matters. You're gonna bring this problem to Brazil too, right?
Say that again?
You're not satisfied with all these problems. Then you bring this a new problem to Brazil.
What's that problem?
Venezuelan refugees, because we are the largest border with the Venezuela. We have more or less 1.5 million refugees from Venezuela.
Jesus. Do they let them in illegally?
Oh, but it's bullshit.
Hey, we're on the radio, so we got to kind of try and not use those words.
For the language. Sorry.
You're right. What's up, Poot?
Brazilian guy doesn't know the difference.
No, you're okay. Eric, you gonna say?
I think Ralph acknowledged that the WESN was, you know, having some technical issues, and for you to send like the audio clip to him, and he would play it at a different time if the live is not working like we want it to.
Yeah, I'm recording this too, but either way, I don't go back and edit anything, so I was just gonna send him this recording, and I've been trying to keep it clean so I didn't have to go back and cut anything else. But
I'm curious about something.
What's up?
What is the general opinion of accepting refugees from Ukraine into the U.S.?
So I've thought about this, Pook, and you know where I stand on the whole immigration thing.
No, we're talking about refugees.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to point that out to you before I went into my.
And it's kind of a trick question, and you know where I'm going with this.
I know. So go ahead.
That bothers me because if we're opening ourselves to saying, oh my gosh, you know, we care and we want to help any way we can, and you know, we'll accept these large number of refugees coming from Syria, which was a political hot button. We all know that.
Mm-hmm.
Or Ukraine or Venezuela or anywhere else. Why do we alienate people from El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, and Mexico?
So I'm going to tell you how what I think about this. You tell me if you agree, disagree, or what you think too, but I'm just going to lay it out, all right? I don't see it as the same thing. The reasons why. The people coming from Ukraine, we know for a fact because there's a law right now or an order. Zelensky came out and said every male between the ages of 18 and 60 have to stay behind and fight. Well, that means that's the majority of that male population. So the people that are refugees that are leaving the country are primarily women and children. And a lot of them are actually leaving behind their husbands and their loved ones. A lot of them also want to go back home. The other difference is they are literally in the middle of probably the largest conflict since World War II. There's no country in South America or Central America that is in that problem, that circumstance. Now, some of those countries are very rough in South and Central America. You know, there is a lot of crime. I acknowledge that, but it's not even close to the same thing. The people that are coming up through Central and South America, the majority, when you go look at the statistics, are working age men. Yes, they may have a reason. But the refugees from Ukraine more than likely are wanting to go back to Ukraine. They're not wanting to stay here full time. That's not saying all of them do, but the majority of them do. Why? Because the majority of them are leaving a loved one in the form of a husband or boyfriend or whatever behind, son, whatever. They're leaving them behind. Especially the married ones whose husbands have to stay and fight. You're going to go back to them. So a lot of those refugees that we bring over, we're bringing over for the idea that it's temporary. Now, if we do bring any over, we need to vet them 100%. I don't care who it is. And we need to let them know this is temporary. If we do it. I am not in agreement with just letting them come over and giving them legal status because they come from a war-torn country. But there is a difference between them seeking asylum or getting a refugee status coming from Ukraine than someone getting refugee status coming from Mexico or Guatemala or one of those countries. Just because your country's poor doesn't mean you get to be a refugee.
But in comparison, the genocide could be viewed as similar, right?
It's not even close to the same scale.
From the cartels and the federales, which are in the Southern American countries.
Yeah, like I said, there are problems down there. There's a lot of crime. I would say, though...
See it all the time here in Texas.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, 2
People
weeks
in
ago...
Venezuela are starving.
Yeah, they are. So Venezuela, I'm actually okay. The Venezuelan thing, I'm okay with that. Just like the Cuban one. Same situation, right? There's certain situations, certain countries that we can have that conversation for. Here's the thing. I grew up with a lot of Cubans, all right? They are all extremely happy to be American. They all do very well, you know, very family-oriented, you know, very close people, like, and a lot of them that came over here want to go back, but, you know, it's just that whole situation that's going on. And the same thing goes for the Venezuelans, I've noticed. But for the other people, it's not like that. Here's the other problem I have with it, Pook, because like you said, there is the cartels and there's a lot of crime. 96,000 Americans per year die from drug overdose. 70% of those are due to fentanyl, and a lot of that is coming through the Mexican border. So a lot of the people that are coming up through there, you know, we're just letting them come in, and we don't know who a lot of these people are. Or we're being too lax on it. And that's another, because I think we have a war at our own border that we need to worry out far before we worry about the Ukrainian situation. You know, I mean, think about 96,000 Americans per year, and we all know that this opioid epidemic is not getting better. It's getting worse as time goes on. Way worse. This stuff's serious. And that's where it's starting to come from. Go ahead, Pook.
Do you believe that we should penalize American businesses that exploit those workers that are coming over from migrant countries?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
And hold them accountable for creating half of these problems. You were in Immokalee.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You know what was going on.
Yep.
And
I
know what was going on down there. Sure you did.
Yeah.
And I know what was going on. And it's sad that we see this happen, and the exploitation of everybody. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, and I say this, and it kind of is it kind of relates to this, right? For there to be illegal activity, there has to be a market for it. You know, for there to be such an influx of working men crossing the border illegally, then they have to know that they're able to get a job here if they're illegal, and they can. Now, they've cracked down a lot since I was younger. I remember when my dad worked in he ran all mechanical harvesting for the company, in the orange groves and stuff. And I remember when I was really young, they had a lot of people, they could have been illegal. There was a lot of shady things going on. It wasn't him hiring. The company was hiring. He was just managing it. But you knew all this stuff was going on. And then I want to say, was it under Bush? But there was a time there, I think it was under Bush. I was young when this happened. They started really phasing that out and cracking down on it. Now, when you go, you will still see some illegal workers, but it's not as open, or it's not as common. Now, it does happen. I think, companies absolutely should be penalized for hiring illegal labor, 100%. It's not even that you are taking a job away from a potential American doing it, but the ones that do it legally can't stand the people that come in here illegally. You get two Mexicans that come across the border. One does everything the right way, and the other one comes across illegally and doesn't do anything the right way, and they're both working next to each other. There's a big difference in respect. I'm telling you, the Mexicans that take the time to do it, they don't like that. They don't support that.
I was in the hotel business, remember?
Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm not going to say, we're letting them over here. You can't blame the business for wanting cheap labor. No, I can blame the business. Again, for a lot of the illegal stuff going on, you have to have a market for it, and these businesses do create a market for it. If they're willing to hire illegal labor and exploit it, people are going to come over here and take advantage of it. You can say what you want, but it does lower wages, because if you're illegal, then there's no really record of you getting paid for anything, and you're lowering the wages. It is cheaper labor. It's almost like slave labor. It's a real thing when you see that thing. Oh, they took our jobs, blah, blah, blah. In a sense, yeah, they could. They are taking a job away from an American. They're taking punish them. Make the punishment harsher. Let's hammer a business that hires an illegal worker. I'm 100% on board for that. As far as the Ukrainian refugees, let's vet them. You keep them here temporarily, and you go from there. But it shouldn't be permanent. But I think that with the Ukrainian refugees, it wouldn't be, like I said, because of the fact that they have left someone behind in Ukraine for the most part, because of how many people have had to stay back and fight. And that's the ultimate difference. I don't know if you agree with that or not, Poop, but that's my opinion on it.
I think it goes both ways. So when you're looking at Central America, that a lot of it is the same. There may be more of a ratio of men coming to work and looking at that as an opportunity to provide for their families back home, right?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things that I have challenges with sometimes is we, as hoteliers, have had instances where we have employees that are legal here and they're married to somebody that's not, and they do work and they work legally and they're paying taxes into a system with an ITIN number, and they're not afforded similar services and everything else. And the argument could be made that as a whole, when you look at it as a percentage, a lot of those taxes that they're paying are higher than the average American, and they're not getting those benefits. And moving towards a process to fix it is important. And I think that that's the key, is to get it right and to make sure that you're doing the right thing. But to demonize somebody because they're already here and they are contributing to society, they are paying taxes, they are paying into the system, and they're actually supporting local economies with sales taxes and supporting mom and pop businesses in Main Street, and that's what we all want.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we cloud that sometimes with and I'm going to use this, and not to make it political, but to use that wall mentality. Mm-hmm. It's just disappointing.
What about the ones that are sending a lot of money back home, though, that aren't keeping that money here?
They do send the money home.
Yeah. So,
but they're using American-owned businesses right here in Texas to do that. Mm-hmm. And they're having to pay fees to do it. And they're supporting their families.
But you have to take, to think about the illegals who cross the border, that maybe, and that's a real possibility, be a terrorist.
Yes.
Just like happened before.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't disagree with that.
So
I was actually at one of the flight schools where one of the 9/11 guys were training in Florida. And they were idiots for not recognizing those signs. So I don't know how they did that. I don't even know how the guy got a permit.
and that's what I wanted to touch on, because I said this not long ago. 250,000 people a month is what the Border Patrol has a run-in with that comes across the border. That's not the total amount coming across the border. There could be far more than that. That's just what we know of. 250,000 people a month. It's like tripled since Trump left office. You realize that with those lax borders coming up from the southern border, the Chinese or someone, they could have had people coming up here. You could have mobilized an entire army through the border. It could have been terrorists. It could have been there's a lot of different types of people that could have come up through there. I saw one guy getting arrested at one of these Border Patrol things, and he looked Chinese. There's a big difference between someone looking Chinese and Mexican, by the way. And he looked like he was Chinese. It's not just people from South America and Central America that are taking advantage of a lax border. So, Pook, I do acknowledge your argument as far as, the ones that are here that are working, that are contributing, and they're paying taxes and all that. I get it. But we still can't just allow this to keep going without knowing who's coming across. Right? There's also a lot of people that do the exact opposite when they come over, and they commit crimes. A lot of the Spanish people in prison right now are illegals that were picked up for doing something, breaking the law, on top of them coming in here illegally. So I think that we definitely need to crack down on the front end and try and stop people from coming in here. And making them go through the proper channels so that we are well aware of what they're bringing in. I mean, even our own press secretary admitted that they weren't even COVID testing these people, but they were making truckers and me and you and everyone else do COVID tests and try and get the workers vaccinated and holding us to all these restrictions, and they weren't letting people we don't even know who the hell they are come over here in the middle of a pandemic. And we're not going to at least test them to see if they're sick? At the same time, you're allowing them to come over, and you ban travel from South America because they had a few people catch the Omicron variant that wasn't even that bad, but you banned travel from there. But you weren't going to ban travel from Mexico and test them. It's hypocritical, it really is. Got real quiet. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Pook had to drop off for a phone call.
Oh, gotcha. But yeah, I mean, that's where my problem starts to come in. There's so many unknowns that could be crossing the border, and that's why it's dangerous too.
I was in the Matrix, sorry.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, I mean, look, for anyone to assume that every person coming to the United States illegally is a criminal or going to act like a criminal, because they are a criminal if they break the law and come over here, theoretically. But if you think that everyone's just going to come over here and start robbing and raping and all that stuff, that's pretty ignorant to think, right? But it's not ignorant to think that that could happen. Look, the majority of people...
in 1,000, it's enough to establish this argument.
Exactly. Why do we ban travel from certain countries? When there's a risk that the people in that country could pose a threat to our population. In any way. Right? You've seen banned travel from Syria. You've seen banned travel from Iraq. You've seen it from China with the COVID virus and all these other countries. Countries shut down their entire border during COVID because they didn't want anyone to get sick in their country because of everyone else they thought posed a threat to them. But we just let people walk through the desert into Texas and Arizona and say, oh, well, if you come up and cross the border that way, across the Rio Grande River, you're exempt from any of that. You're exempt from having to take a COVID test and get vaccinated. No, that's not right. That's very dangerous. You know, I'm all for people wanting to take advantage of the American dream. Now, and I think Pook's still on the phone, but people can tell me what they think about this. I think we should experiment, and this is probably what I'll talk about tomorrow, and maybe have Jester on here. But it was something along the lines of like a mandatory 1-year military service for everyone. But I think we could actually test that out on the people coming over here. What we should do is we should stop every male and woman between the ages of 18 and 30 that are crossing the border into the United States illegally and say, if you want to come in here, you can either go back and go through the right process, or you can sign up for the military and serve this country. You got 4 years. You go and you serve this country, you learn English, and you come out and you'll be a citizen. You know what that'll do? The people that want to come here will be okay with it. And the people that are coming here for the wrong reasons, well, too bad. Not my problem. Not our problem. If you want to serve this country, you want to give up your life for this country, then you have the right to be a citizen. But I think, yeah, I'm okay with offering that. I think a lot of people will be okay with offering that. But just to let them come in, no. And we're not the
problem is the legal path. It's so difficult, it's so rough that people can't pass away to that, all the bureaucracy, the taxes, the costs.
I get it. You know, Marco, the problem with being the best country in the world, and I mean this, there's no exaggerating this. We have the biggest economy. We offer the most opportunity. That's why you hear the American dream. You don't hear about the Australian dream, the Brazilian dream, the German dream. Well, they used to have a German dream, but it wasn't a good one. You know, but you hear about the American dream, and people from every country around the world wants to come here and take advantage of that. And with that, okay, you have to have these restrictions in place, because if you didn't, we would have everybody and their brother coming in here. We would be so overpopulated, it'd be ridiculous. Honestly, we would. If we didn't have those restrictions in place, everyone would be here.
You are right at the center point, but I disagree. When you think that's the only country that people seeks. You see, Michael, America is the greatest country on the world. I agree with you. I don't know, but so look for a better life. for me, a Brazilian guy, can I the Canadian way of life is amazing. Is an amazing
It is. You're
way
right.
for me.
I was generalizing it, and I know that people go to other countries. I know that. You know, I do know that. What I'm saying is, it's just not even on the same level as it is here, though. That's where I was getting at. I should have clarified that. It's not on the same level, right? Obviously, you have people that go to Russia and Ukraine. I saw, was it yesterday, the day before? There was like 3,500 Nigerians in Ukraine that the Nigerian government was trying to figure out what was going on with them. I think there were students. So, yeah, you have people that go to a lot of different places. It's just not on the same scale. It's not even comparable. That brings up, I think, another talking point I wanted to hit on. I saw something, and people were going on saying that Poland, I believe it was Poland, the one that's taking in these immigrants, was racist. And this refugee thing was racist. Now, I'd like to have Pook back to comment on this. I think he's on the phone, though, but maybe he'll come back in and comment on this. They said it was racist because apparently the black Ukrainians that were citizens were having more difficulty getting refugee status and crossing the border. My question with that is, when I'm looking at the black Ukrainians that were trying to leave Ukraine, there was men in that category. Now, if they're a Ukrainian citizen, they should be able to leave Ukraine with no problem at all. And get that status if another country is accepting Ukrainian refugees. But why are the black men leaving if they're a citizen when all the citizens that are men between 18 and 60 have to stay in the country and fight? Why are they exempt from fighting? The other thing is...
The straight answer, the Azov battalion, the Azov segment of warship.
Say that again?
Of neo-Nazis. It's a group of neo-Nazis. It's which is doing is it's practically killing the fellow Ukrainian citizens.
You'll have to clarify on that because I'm trying to piece that how that.
We're talking about a neo-Nazi group in Ukraine, right?
No, I was talking about the black Ukrainian citizens.
No, in other show, in another show, I believe yesterday or.
Someone brought the Nazis up. Yeah, I didn't, but someone else has. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Azov. These guys are killing black people, like Jewish people.
Mm-hmm. Are they
so are a big mess about it? A big fear about it is spreading along the Ukraine provinces.
So you're saying that they're leaving because it's Ukrainian neo-Nazis that are actually going after them and targeting them. So it's their own fellow Ukrainian citizens that could potentially be dangerous to them.
It's a big factor.
Gotcha. Now, how much of a factor is that? Do you know? I mean, how big of a problem is this? Because I know Putin has tried to stress that. And I know, Raccoon, that there's not that large of a black population. No, we're not talking about the Russian army, though, Raccoon. We're talking about Ukrainian citizens. But how much of a factor, Marcos, do you think that neo-Nazism is in Ukraine as a whole? Is it just a small group? Or is it supposedly all of them? Because, Zelensky's a Jew. And he's... Like, because that has to have some kind of impact here. You can't tell me that...
I was talking to Colonel Paulo today, earlier, and he told me that these guys are no more than 100 people.
Gotcha. That black population you're saying? Or the neo-Nazis are no more than 100 people?
The neo-Nazis.
Okay. So it's not that big of a problem because we're talking about millions of people that are staying behind in Ukraine to fight. So if there's 100, then that shouldn't be a deterrence for the black population, the black male population in Ukraine to leave the country. You get what I'm saying? Like they shouldn't be exempt from the same laws that everyone else is.
How distinguish if the guy has a proposal to kill or another soldier, he will the battlefield and kill him. Sorry.
No, you have to say that again.
If the guy belongs to the neo-Nazi group in the battlefield, he will kill everybody he thinks it's a target.
Mm-hmm.
So the African Ukrainian man.
Gotcha. F1 says there's a group of ex-veterans going to Ukraine to fight. Yeah, I know some that are actually looking to do that. I saw something on Facebook, by the way, yesterday. It says Ukraine is looking to pay $2,000 a day. So it's not Ukraine. There's a company out of the United States that's willing to pay $2,000 a day to go fight in Ukraine. So if you don't see me in the next couple weeks, just know that's what I took advantage of, because that's a lot of money. We're talking about $60,000 a month they were going to pay you to go over there and fight the Russians. Now, I don't think I'll qualify because I think you had to have at least 5 years of military experience. They didn't say combat experience. They just said military experience. So some of you vets, there is a company that is paying handsomely if you wanted to go and shoot some commies. What's up, Eric?
I'm still here.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something. Marcos fell off. But he said hopefully not Blackwater. I don't know who it was, Raccoon. I can find you the name of that company. But I was like, damn, shit. $2,000 a day sounds pretty nice right now. Give me a tank of gas. buy my food and groceries for a month. So whoever wants to call in now, the lines are open and wants to talk about any of this. I had another article I wanted to read, but I can't find it. And the oil thing was something I wanted to touch on. Oh, I know what I want to talk about too. By the way, just a little economic update. The S&P is down 12.5% year to date. Adjusted for 7.5% inflation, you're looking at a number close to negative 20% real return for the year. So I want you to take that and put that into perspective. Negative 20% inflation adjusted return year to date. And we're still in the first quarter. Hopefully that turns around for the sake of my job and everyone else's investments and 401ks. But that's yet to be seen. I know some people like Pook, and I know, I don't think Spanky's in here, but they took advantage of the oil companies, and I hope they continue to do well on that as well. But you hear Biden say he doesn't like talking about the stock market because he feels that it's not a good indicator of economic growth. It is a very good indicator. Now, it's not the end-all be-all, but it is a very good indicator of economic growth. Because a lot of the companies in our economy are publicly traded. Someone asked, is Russia even bothered about the sanctions? Yeah, I think that Russia's very bothered about the sanctions, by the way. Putin is actually calling these sanctions an act of war. We basically weaponize finance. Now, are they going to find ways around these sanctions? Absolutely, they are. I mean, they're still able to pay for this endeavor they're on. But the people of Russia are feeling this. The ruble is worth nothing. I think it was 150 rubles last time when I checked for $1 American. It's almost lost all of its value. Now they are, they took them off that Swift banking deal. I don't know a lot about that, but I do know that they're going through China that has another system that they're going to take advantage of that will kind of wipe that out. It won't make no difference. But as long as people keep buying oil from them, they'll be all right. As long as they have China, they'll be okay. Here's the other thing. They have the United Arab Emirates that are helping them as well, that have taken their side. And that's all oil money. So you have to even take into consideration that even if we stop buying Russian oil, they're just going to basically launder it through another country, and we're going to be purchasing it anyway. So these are things to take into consideration. But I do think the sanctions are absolutely taking a toll on the Russian people and a lot of the Russian billionaires. Pook mentioned there's an oil company in Russia that is putting a lot of pressure on their government because they're about to go broke. So, we'll see what happens. But they're doing a crazy propaganda campaign over there. They're using the George Bush war playbook strategy of the weapons of mass destruction and genocide. And as long as Putin can keep the majority of his population in support of him, then there's no risk for him moving forwards. Eventually that's going to wither away, though. The longer this keeps going, the more Russians that keep dying. Because eventually, I saw something that said maybe 11,000 Russian soldiers have been killed. I don't know what the real number is, but if it's 11,000, I want you to think that only 19,000 died in the Battle of the Bulge. 19,000 Americans died in the Battle of the Bulge, which was one of the largest battles of World War II. And that took place over a period of a month. We're only, 12, 13 days into this, and they've already lost 11,000? You're talking about catastrophic losses potentially for the Russian military if they keep this going. They've lost a lot of their vehicles. They've lost a lot of morale. And if Putin wants to keep pushing this campaign further than Ukraine, he needs to think of another strategy, because if he keeps going, he's not going to be able to. He's not going to have the. His military is just going to be diminished. He's not going to be able to advance anywhere else, at least for a while. I think I saw something that they were going to have to call up reserves. He's trying to recruit Syrian soldiers to go fight in the cities. And he's trying to pull people from other countries to come help him. So he's going to run into some issues very quickly here. It's going to take a toll. It's already taken a toll. And going back to the 11,000 that potentially could have been killed, these mothers of these kids, because that's what they are eventually going to start, finding out that their sons are dead. You got to tell them eventually. And as well as I do, if they're reporting 500 Russian soldiers that are dead, but there's only 11,000, people talk. It's going to come out. And those families are going to be pissed. Imagine if we only lost 4,500, I say only, that's a lot. We lost 4,500 soldiers killed in Afghanistan and Iraq in a matter of 20 years. And Russia has lost potentially 11,000 killed in 12 days. If that happened with George Bush during that Iraq campaign, he probably would have been shot by now. I'm just calling it like I see it. That's crazy. But that's really all I really have to cover today. If someone wants to come on and make a comment, they can. I know there's another show starting here in about 5 minutes. Eric, you can go ahead and plug shows in as well. Actually, let me do this before you do that.
You're about to close out your Facebook here in a minute.
Yeah.
Well, and I would certainly remind our Facebook and WESN audience that we're on Podbean and we're on YouTube. And I think at some point, Michael, you might be exploring DLive, Twitch, and Rumble as other alternatives at some point, or additional alternatives in hopes of growing. So, but we hope that they'll come back, of course, tomorrow and Thursday and Monday, and plus impromptu shows.
Yeah. So
especially on the Podbean end.
Yeah, if you guys could do me a favor though, I'm gonna put a link down here in the thing. These are the articles I write. This is my website. If you guys could go to this, it's thefederalreport.com and subscribe. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. But if you could go and subscribe to that website, that would help me out a lot. I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to get more traffic on that and trying to get to where the podcast is also on there as well, the video part. Again, 100% free, doesn't cost anything. I write analysis about events going on, and I use those analysis to kind of supplement my show, and that's where I get a lot of the information that I talk about. But yeah, if you guys could go, plug that in, go subscribe. Also, we're on YouTube. It's just Real Conservative Talk. Go subscribe on YouTube. Go to the Facebook page, like the page, because if I get kicked off one platform, I'm going to have to be on others, and I don't want you guys to miss out and kind of lose contact with a lot of my audience just because someone wanted to censor me. Also, go check out WESN. Today's our first time on WESN. It was pretty smooth. I want to thank Ralph for giving me the opportunity to be a part of that. I know it sounds like we may have had some technical issues today. We'll get that worked out. I'll send him the recording so it'll be up there. But as far as, use, very easy to use. And I look forward to kind of being a part of that as well. But yeah, go subscribe to thefederalreport.com. I just put an article out right before I started the podcast. And on Facebook, we'll be back on tomorrow. I appreciate you guys listening.